I'm at the stage now where I've got to think about finish. This is all taped up, ready for protection. I don't want to get any finish on these surfaces or on the surfaces where I've still got the glue. But the challenge I've really faced is what to finish with. We all know, I think everybody knows who's looked into it, is that nitrocellulose is the preferred option. But I don't know, but I can't seem to find that here, and certainly they won't ship it because of its flammable nature. And it's very difficult to work with. So I've been researching the other options, and you know, a lot of the modern guitars, they're using acrylic varnishes, but the best guitars are still sticking with the nitrocellulose because it gives a much thinner surface and therefore has less impact on the sound. So I've been thinking, what can I use that's going to give you a nice finish as well as really reducing that thickness of lacquer. And I've come across one which has been experimented with by a few people, and that's cyanoacrylate. Cyanoacrylate is just an acrylic basically, so it's like an acrylic lacquer, but in fact it's very fast setting. So I experimented a little bit here with some mahogany, and I've got one section with the cyanoacrylate and one without, and it's a really excellent finish that it gives. It's not buffed up or anything yet, but it fills the grain and it gives you a perfectly smooth finish, and yeah, I'm very impressed to be honest, but I'm told that it's difficult to work with. So it's a big deep breath time. I think I'm going to give it a go. I might live to regret it, but let's see what happens. So here we are, the guitar's finished as far as the cyanoacrylate or super glue application is concerned. So how did it go? It's interesting because it's a really thin, hard coat and it cuts back beautifully, but I'm not sure I'd ever do this again. It's perfect for the hardwoods where you've got to fill up all the holes. That works really well. But to build up enough coats on there, it takes forever. A couple of times when I cut back to the original wood. It's so thin. But I think now I've got it to a good point. Next stage, I've already cut this one back with wet and dry, using water, and I've cut it back now so that there's almost nothing visible in terms of any shine. So it's nice and flat. And that's with 600 grade paper. Now I'll progressively work up with wet and dry, with 1000, 1500, and go right the way up to this little baby, which is 12,000 grit. On a slightly different note with this cyanoacrylate, the super glue, it basically says on the internet, if you do a search for this stuff, that it's safe. But that there are fumes involved, and that those fumes can hit you in the chest and have a problem with the mucous membranes. It certainly does. That's what I've found. Even with a well ventilated room, and even using a proper mask like this one and goggles to prevent the fumes into your eyes, I still had some pretty red eyes, and it's brought me out in a bit of a cough. To use it to fill up the holes, as I said, on the hardwood probably makes some sense, but to try to do a whole guitar like I've done in it, and I haven't done this side yet, I think is probably too much. Well, that's the finished job with the 12,000 grit and a little bit of polish afterwards, just to take off the dust and the water, and you can see that's a pretty good finish. It's not perfect. There's I can see a few deep scratches in there, which I'll have to have another go at just to take out again, but that's coming up quite nicely. Don't speak too soon, I think that's what they say, isn't it? Just a couple of small scratches to take out, and every time I took them out I cut through to the wood. I was repeating the process over and over again of building up the cyanoacrylate, cutting it back, and then it's breaking through to the wood. It just is too thin. So what have I done? I've redone the whole guitar using this lacquer here, which is I believe a nitrocellulose, but the data sheet doesn't actually say that, but I believe it is. And this somehow reacts as it comes into the air to give it the hardening qualities. So here you go, twice made guitar. What would I sum up as the learnings? I think the cyanoacrylate does work for hardwoods. It does a good job of filling the grain, but beyond that I think it's too thin. I wouldn't use it. The nitrocellulose, or at least this one, works very well. It's a great lacquer, but the whole job is so difficult, this lacquering. It's been the hardest part of the guitar. Any advice? If you can get it done by somebody else professionally, do it, because this is tough work.